And now, the most listened to financial show in the country. Or it should be.
Do the Wall Street Shuffle. Hear the money rustle. Watch the greenbacks tumble. Feel the sterling crumble.
This is the Wall Street Shuffle.
I'm just looking over the list of new subscribers to our newsletter, Peak Lifestyle Newsletter, that you can go out and get by going to our website, The Wall Street Shuffle, and that newsletter list is growing. You guys like this? Well, it's not exactly end of the world stuff that David puts out there, but it's a much more in-depth analysis of what's going on in the world. The good thing is, for those of you who have not had your daily dose of cynicism, you need to read the newsletter and read David's contributions. So we get him his contributions on that are twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then we have a separate newsletter that is coming out for those of you. We'll send it out if you want to keep it. Tell us you want to keep it. If you want us to stop sending it to you, tell us to stop, and we will stop. And hopefully you'll like that. But it's certainly less on the financial side, more on the world affairs side. So anyway, welcome back to the Wall Street Shuffle, 877-326-3255. If you'd like to join us, leave a question with Shane or come on the air with us. Either way works just great with us. Our guest this segment is Adam Leitman Bailey. He was one of New York's most successful and prominent real estate attorneys. How do I know that? Because it says it right here on my sheet. It says that. But he is author of Finding the Uncommon Deal. A top New York lawyer explains how to buy a home for the lowest possible price. Adam, nice to have you on, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, I got to ask you a quick question. If you wrote a book that says how we find a housing deal at the lowest possible price, yet you also believe that the housing market's going to drop further, wouldn't the best answer just be wait?
Maybe, because if you're getting a mortgage,
yep,
and the lenders decide not to give you any money, it doesn't matter what price the houses are going to be sold at. You can't afford to buy it.
Yeah.
So it's a tough double-edged sword. You see prices dropping, but you also see interest rates rising. You see that they're putting more fees on loans, making it more expensive to get a loan. And the interest rates are going up, fees are rising, and the jumbo loan, if you're buying anything above $729,000, you're going to have to pay an extra interest rate. Instead of $729, it's $625. You have some real problems.
Let me tell you something that is just a travesty. There are some of the most beautiful homes that you would ever see down here in Dallas, right on this gorgeous lake. 8,000-foot homes, brand new, 4 stories, turret, 30-mile views, absolutely magnificent. 3 years ago, they would have sold for $2 to $3 million. They can be had right now for $800,000. The bank, it's $800,000 cash, and you could probably buy it for $500,000, 8,000 square foot houses, because there's no financing for the jumbo properties.
Right, and that's one of the keys. Now, cash is king. If you have cash in this market, it's fantastic time to buy. You may want to wait. But if you're buying for 30 years, does it really matter if the market goes down another 10%? The question, which I don't know the answer to, because that crystal ball I left at home, is it going down 40 or 50% where it really is worth staying on the sidelines? If you have all cash. But how many of us can put down $1 million in cash? Not many. So we have to get mortgages. Now we're dependent on banks giving us loans, and there's less banks out there, less money, and the money's becoming more expensive. So if you're buying for long term, it's the best time in the history of modern real estate to buy a home.
And I completely concur with that. It's funny, the real estate taxes in Texas right now on jumbo properties are almost as much as the payments on the house are.
It's incredible. So therefore, the key is not when to buy, but if you're ready to buy. So if you're ready to buy and you're not going to go in foreclosure and you have enough money to do it, and you become an expert on buying the home, then start looking. And one of the greatest things about the distressed properties is insider trading in the stock market, you go to jail. In real estate, you're celebrated. You got a story to brag at wherever you go to socialize. So it's a wonderful thing. You just, short sales, pre-foreclosures, foreclosures, people that are forced to sell. It's a wonderful time to be knowledgeable and smart, become an expert on housing.
All right, teach our listeners right now, where would you start them out if they were looking for truly the best deal, but not on a destroyed, ratted out, foreclosed, abandoned building, a house that's absolutely gorgeous? Would you let's say they wanted a new house. How would they find somebody, some banker, somebody somewhere that had this beautiful new house at distressed prices?
Well, first of all, we believe in real estate location, location, location. And if you take that, meaning location is the most important factor, and you watch tornadoes or hurricanes, you notice that the most expensive areas will get hit by the down market last. So the better area you buy in, the better chance that you're going to survive an economic depression or recession or whatever we're in that no one's able to identify probably for the next 10 years.
Sure.
Number one, become an expert on where you're buying, know where you want to live, and within a short amount of time, within a short community, become an expert. So when you walk into that uncommon deal, you know exactly how much you should go for on that day.
Would you ever tell a person to, if they had the cash flow but didn't have the cash to pay cash on a house, would you ever tell them to get into a property that requires jumbo financing?
Oh, I don't have a problem with getting jumbo financing. Everyone needs a place to live. If you have 4 kids and you want to go into that nice area, it's worth the extra money. If you believe in America and if you believe in the American dream, you believe that real estate is going to rise in value over a 10, 20, or 30-year period. So if you're buying for 5 years, rent. And this is a guy I'm a #1 bestseller in New York Times on how to buy a home, and I'm telling you to rent if you're buying for less than 5 years. This market's at least lasting 3 years. Why? We're not done, including in Texas, we're not done with the foreclosures. They're still going on. A lot of them haven't even started yet. The average foreclosure in Texas is taking 16 months.
Yep.
In New York, it's 23. Therefore, there's a lot more inventory that's going to be flooding the market. As a result, it's a wonderful time to buy, but only if you can afford it.
You know, there was a great chart that we had on our website up for quite some time. It came out about a year and a half ago. It was either Credit Suisse or Deutsche Bank that put it out. And it talked about the 3 waves of refinancings that each one, and these are huge waves. You can see them coming through the system. It's like a snake swallowing 3 rabbits. You can see them going right through the system. And we're only really through 1.5 of those waves of the subprime, the 125% cashback, the really bad mortgages. We still have a lot more mortgages yet to be dealt with that are coming up on their reset periods.
Well, now, what does that mean? This isn't like your show. By researching it, you're not just saying buy this stock or buy today. You're analyzing how to do it. So let's analyze what that means for your listeners. Let's take it.
Great.
So we have a market. You see that prices are going down. That's step number 1. Okay. So you know whatever price you're offering the seller today, and if they don't take it, it's going to be less tomorrow. That's a great negotiating tool for the seller to convince the seller to sell you the home at a certain price.
You bet.
Number 2, you know if you're buying short-term not to buy. Number 3, if you're an expert on the property and you understand the market and you've looked enough, you know exactly what you should pay. Number 4, get qualified, get it pre-approved, have your financials ready, and know exactly how much you have to spend when going shopping. You can't go shopping for a home unless a lender tells you how much you have to spend. So you take all of those, and now you're an expert on finding the uncommon deal or finding your dream home. You're taking that. Now, what do you have to learn next? You need to learn the market. What is a short sale? How do I lock in a short sale? How do I make sure I don't do all the homework for them and they go to someone else? Well, you sign a contract with them. I'm going to help you get to unload this distressed property. You agree that you have to sell it to me if we get it done in 120 days, and I can get out of it at any time.
Do you have a sense for the minimum holding period that people should say, I should be renting now or I should be buying?
Well, the minimum holding period as far as renting is if you can't sleep at night because you're worried you're going to lose your job, or you don't have enough in the bank to go at least 3 to 6 months in payments in case something goes wrong or someone in your family gets hurt and it's not insured, or in case you lose your job, then you should rent. It's not worth it. The market's going to be coming down. There still will be loans out there, maybe not as cheap, but don't take chances where you're going to wind up in foreclosure or bankrupt, and you really only get one life in real estate. It's hard to recover.
Would you look at adjustable rate mortgages?
I don't have a problem with adjustable rate mortgages because as long as you believe that this is a little complicated, but as long as you believe that the market's not going below 20%, it's okay to do adjustable rate mortgages. Why is it so risky to do them, and why do I disfavor them in my book? Because if you're paying adjustable rate of 3.5 or 4% right now on a 15-year on a 5-year ARM, and the reason they give you that loan is because they appraise your house. Let's say it's a $200,000 house. They appraise it for at least $200,000 to $180,000. If you want to refinance and lock into a 15-year loan, the house needs to appraise for that same amount. Now, if interest rates go up and the market goes down, and all of a sudden interest rates are flying high and they're at 8%, and you're at 3.5, and you want to refinance, and you can't because the property won't appraise, you're now stuck at paying 8.5%, and there's nothing you can do. It could go up to 6 16% as it did in the 70s.
You bet.
And beware of inflation, deflation, because it's knocking on our door. And the way that that Congress is treating money and is manipulating the market, get ready for the worst.
And Jay, we're caught in an interesting position right now because the likelihood of the number of jobs or the salary per job going up is relatively limited based upon globalization. And people can call me nuts all day long, but it's true. But the value of real estate is predicated upon the number of jobs, number of people employed, and how much money they make. But you can have inflation on top of that. You can have the worst of all worlds. You can have inflation, your salary staying the same, interest rates going up following inflation, and you facing a refinance with a home with less equity in it. That's not a zero chance of that happening.
I agree, but when the market's going up, I like an adjustable rate mortgage. Like, for example, I have clients that bought in the year 2000, and they did an adjustable rate at 4 or 5%, and while everybody else was paying 7 or 8%, and the market didn't start decreasing for 8 years. So I have clients that went 8 years making hundreds of thousands of dollars just on interest savings because they did an adjustable rate. But we know, Danny and Dan and I, we know that the market's not going up anytime soon, so do not do adjustable rate unless you're sure, you're guaranteed that the market's not going down less than 20%.
Yeah, I think that's right. How do you get the average person? Now, the average listener we have out there is a pretty affluent listener, well above the norm. How do you get them to get comfortable jumping into this marketplace right now? Because the idea of being in a deflationary environment where whatever they buy, they know is going to cost less tomorrow, that's a very hard thing to get over. I know we started to talk about that, but there's got to be a motivator. There's got to be a need. It can't just be a want in a market like this,
well,
I wouldn't think.
It's because you get rich in real estate. People that bought their house for $100,000 in 1980 are averaging in New York and around the country at least $700, $800, $1 million. So you're able to retire. You're able to retire based on buying a home and moving in and being there for 30 years. You can retire on that under the American way. Now, will that happen in the next 30 years? We don't know. But not only does the house provide shelter, and not only does it provide tax interest rate savings, you can deduct your interest rate. The interest payments you make towards your mortgage is deductible. And not only does it give you pride in owning a home, but hopefully, if you believe in the American way, in 20 or 30 years or 15 years, when you retire, you now have a wonderful, wonderful pension or wonderful annuity or wonderful asset where you may even be a millionaire just because you decided to buy a home. You can't get that for rent. The only one when you're paying rent you're making rich is your landlord.
No, I would agree with that. Do you think there's enough confidence in America in general that salaries and wages will go up for the average American so they'll be able to afford a larger home?
But we don't. But we Americans can't do it that way. No longer can we predict the future. We have to go by what we know. And what we know is, how is my job today? How am I looking? I can't expect to get an increase in a raise. But if I take what I'm making now and my boss is, I'm doing pretty good and it's pretty steady, and I have enough in savings, then can I make the leap and go out and buy a home? Those are the things you have to look at. What is the safety? Did you save enough money in the bank? If you're answering that question as a no, then rent. Keep renting until you save more money, until your job's more secure. If it is, I recommend jumping in the market as long as you're doing it for the long term. Remember, everyone needs a place to live.
Oh yeah.
And if you're putting money and you're paying off your mortgage, that's not only free rent, that's not only great tax deductions, but that's money in the bank.
Well, you and I,
the easiest way to get rich is through real estate.
You and I remember, we're old enough to remember at least some of the recessions that we've gone through. The one thing everybody knew in the recession was, yes, it's going to be a downside, but coming out the backside, people are going to start to buy more, build inventories. We'll put people back to work. My wages will come back. My job will come back, and that's always been true. But we've never faced globalization before, when people go into school studying business, I don't know what they're going to do. They need to write new textbooks. Everything's changing. We got a whole new world out there. You bet.
But what everybody needs to do is you have to pretend that the world's coming to an end. And how do you act? You act safely. You act conservatively. And you still have to live your life and hope for the best, but expect the worst.
You bet. Would you any parts of the country you wouldn't be buying in right now?
It's interesting. Anytime there's a bad neighborhood, I don't like it because anytime there's crime that brings down property values,
yep.
I would buy the worst house in the best neighborhood. And I'm interested, because a lot of people have children, I'm interested in schools, safety, and the better neighborhoods. I think they will go down last. Is
there such a thing as a good neighborhood in Detroit?
I don't really know Detroit. I've only been there once. But there always is a best block. And, you go what you buy in business and in real estate, you buy what you know.
Yep.
So if you're an expert on the market in Detroit, there's the best house there, and you're going to know when it's a steal. And if you see many 10, 15 properties within a couple of weeks or months, you'll know exactly what it's worth. And you provide for your family there. And I heard they're actually selling cars now. It's a good thing to know.
All right, you get one last pearl of wisdom. Give me one pearl of wisdom that everybody.
This is fun. You're really smart. Most of the people I speak to on all these TV stations aren't as smart as you. I like this.
Well, you know, and you have good taste. I have to admire that.
Good that we have something in common. All right, well, what do you want to know?
Give me your one great pearl of wisdom that when we walk away from this, all the listeners are going to go, I've got to go out and buy Adam's book.
Oh, my book is only for people that want to buy. If you're renting, save your money and don't spend the $10 or $12 on it. I think you should only buy I think what my book does is it makes you the greatest buyer in the country. It gives you an advantage over everybody else that's not buying. And it teaches you the ins and outs of exactly this market. Foreclosures, short sales, the basics, and also the protection. You also need a shield. Make sure you bring an engineer into your property. If you're buying a home for $200,000, but you need $100,000 in repairs, it's not worth $200,000. It's worth $100,000. Therefore, when you read the book, it's going to make you an expert not only on how to find the best deal, but how to protect yourself. So you don't get. Am I allowed to say the word screwed?
Sure.
Okay, I just
you did.
Yeah.
All right, hey,
that's the deal.
The good news about your book, I like the book a lot. I think your next book, though, could triple the sales of what you're selling now if you'll come out with a book saying "Finding the Uncommon Buyer for the House That I Can't Sell."
Are you selling a house?
You write that. I'll ghost it with you. Are
you selling right now?
Am I selling right now? No.
Oh, because it's very simple as a seller. The offer you get today will be better than the one you get tomorrow. So take it. That's the key. Selling is really easy. We're getting worse. The market's not getting better, and Texas is going to feel it just as much as everybody else.
That's that one pager again. Hold on, Shane. Do we have callers on hold, or we're gonna have to go through?
I would love to take questions.
Yeah, I would too, brother. We are against a heartbreak right now. I'll have to bring you back on.
Too bad for me.
Hey, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Adam Leitman.
Anytime.
Hey, well, let me go through this. Adam Leitman Bailey, and you can reach him at ALBlawfirm.com.
info@ALBlawfirm.com.
There you go. And the name of the book is Finding the
Uncommon Deal. It's a New York Times #1 bestseller.
You should be doing the radio yourself, my friend. Great interview. I enjoyed it.
I'm trying.
Yeah, take care. We'll have you back on anytime.
Thank you. Bye.
We're going to be right back after this break with Denny Striegel. He is a former CEO and president of Verizon Wireless and author of Managers. Can You Hear Me Now? But we're not going to be talking about his managers today. We're going to be maybe talk a little bit about the president. We'll be right back.